pass it around now, but when I start, pass it around. Well, I got a better idea here. We'll do it in the back here. These are the best one here. Don't start passing that yet, but when I start lecturing, then start passing it around. Well, I guess we better start moving because we're going to get through this. We got to pick up the pace. 95 in your book. 93 in mine. Because, see, the 95 pages took place in the baseball game and in the hospital. Also got the idea that the invasion had occurred. So there's a housekeeper at his house, page 99, 97, mine, called Manya. But she's not his real mother. She's just, that's why I think this is very autobiographical. Because it just, these characters don't seem like they're made up, you know. It seems like someone's really real character. Shabbat, what does that mean, Shabbat?
Sabbath.
It's the Hebrew word for Sabbath, right? See, S's become SH's. And Danny comes over, and what happens here? This is pretty good. I'll read this a little bit further. He explains what Hasidism is. That's on page 102, 101. Poland was different from other countries in Europe. By the way, frankly, it's true. All the Jews in Poland were wiped out by Hitler. Over 3 million were exterminated, and that's documentable. The Poles themselves didn't do it, but you know, there was a lot of cooperation with Hitler on that particular situation, unfortunately, but that's a long history. So the Jews were encouraged to come to Poland. It was kind of you see what happened as the church got more harsh. The Jews had been, you know, very early on in Spain, very early on in Italy. They'd gone with the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were coastal peoples in Palestine, Canaan. They were in the Mediterranean trade with the Phoenicians 1000 BC. King Solomon is very much involved with Hiram of Tyre. Hiram of Tyre is the Phoenician king. Helps build the temple in Jerusalem with cedar wood and stuff. It's all in the Bible. Those of you who know the Bible. Jews were in North Africa very early on, southern Arabia. But you see, how come they didn't disappear? Because their religion was strong and they kept them culturally together and somewhat maybe separate in some respects. They were in Spain very early. They helped the Muslim conquest of Spain, partially because the Christians, the rules by the time Christianity took over the Roman Empire under Constantine became very strict. And the Jews were treated pretty badly because of the picture in the New Testament. And the church felt that they shouldn't thrive, shouldn't flourish, so they were forbidden to enter most trades. They couldn't bear arms, they couldn't be soldiers, they weren't allowed to be part of the peasant lord system. They couldn't take fealty oaths, which were Christian oaths, and they were slowly relegated to the trades. This is by the Middle Ages got guilds. They were pushed out of any trade that they could be in. They couldn't do agricultural labor. They weren't allowed. And then when the Venetians got permission from the popes, pardon me, when the Lombards in northern Italy got permission from the Medici popes around the 1200s to take away the only trade they had, banking. So that's why, for instance, you got very rich Italian banking families. And in every country, I don't have time to describe all this, but in every country in Europe, you always have now a Lombard street. Lombard is where Milan is situated. It's the province of Italy where Milan is situated. They became the new bankers of Europe because they got special dispensation from the Medici and other popes. Banking was called money lending then. You know, bankers, you ever try to get a mortgage? Bankers charge interest. That was considered usury. Forbidden. And the Jews were the only ones allowed to do it because they weren't under the Christian system as such. But when the Lombards took over, they had no place anymore in the system. So slowly, the countries of Western Europe pushed them out. You may have seen the movie Ivanhoe, but Walter Scott writes about that. It's about, basically the Jews were pushed out of England in the 1200s, France and Germany in 13 and 1400s. And they were pushed eastward where their places weren't organized. And Poland was somewhere in the middle between the Western world and Russia. And they slowly sort of congregated, if you like, there as they were pushed out of the final expulsion was when? In the West. Spain, 1492. When Spain became united and the Muslims were pushed out of Spain or converted to Christianity, the Jews were thrown out of Spain too. That was part of Columbus's trip to America, which a lot of people think had Jewish financing behind it because they were being thrown out of Spain by the unification of Spain at that time. And Columbus writes in his diaries of seeing the Jews leaving in the harbor when he's leaving. And there's Jewish people on his voyage. There's a Jewish doctor and there are some other people on his voyage too. And so on. So they're looking for new lands to escape or settle or get away from the situation. But most of them are pushed eastward. And that's how you got this huge concentration of population in that area of Lithuania, Poland, Romania, all those areas, Ukraine, which Hitler then swarmed into in the Second World War and liquidated everybody. So he describes it here, you see. Poland was different. Poland actually encouraged Jews to come and live there. Why did Poland want Jews when almost every other country was persecuting them? Because Poland was a poor country with a bankrupt aristocracy and a crushed peasantry. So he gives you the whole situation here on page, I guess 101 here. 98 in my book. Her upper class nobles would not engage in work and managed to survive by what they could squeeze out of the labor of the serfs. There was a serf system. Poland wanted people who would build her economy, organize her affairs, bring her to life. Jews had a reputation for possessing these qualities, so the Polish nobles were eager to have Jews settled in their country. They became the middlemen. So therefore the antagonism and hatred, aside from theological disaffection, had to do with the economic situation. So the nobles used the Jews to squeeze money out of the peasantry. Jews used to have that. They would collect the taxes and then they would have to pay the nobles for permission to reside there. That's not a very pleasant situation. Hatred finally exploded into violence. In east of the Ukraine and Russia, there were the Cossacks. And so on and so forth. So he describes the Khmelnytsky massacres in 1648, where the Jews became the victim of the Polish peasants who hated them and of the Cossacks who also hated them. This situation lasted for 10 years. That's page 102. Reuben, what can our people say to God during the Khmelnytsky uprising? They could not thank him for the slaughter going on. So many of them began to believe the Messiah was coming. So they had some messianic developments in the 1650 period. At that moment, there seemed to be no meaning. They prayed and did penance, And someone appeared. His name was Shabbatai Tzvi. It's mentioned on page 102. I think. He revealed himself at the same time as these massacres occurred. He actually came from Smyrna on the west coast of Turkey, a Greek area on the west coast of Turkey. And he said he was the Messiah. And many of the masses believed this and followed after it. But ultimately the Muslim authorities in Istanbul arrested him and gave him the choice, Islam or the sword. So he converted to Islam. And it was a great disappointment to all of his followers all over the East who thought that the Messianic age had begun and they were going to be saved and taken to Palestine or whatever. So he's describing that situation here. So the whole thing was a spiritual disaster. He's called a false Messiah because the Messiah shouldn't give up just because someone offers him Islam or the sword. He should be willing to die. That's what Christianity has presented in the New Testament. So that was a great disappointment. So then people became very superstitious, he said. They had amulets and they drove away evil spirits, medicines, dances, tefillin, and all kinds of things. He describes it quite well. And then he describes the birth of the who. On page, I guess it's around page 103, 104 or something, around 1700, following the Shabbatai 70th event, or Shabbatai Tzvi, he was called. I don't hold you responsible for all these names or all this history, but it's interesting to learn or know about it. The Baal Shem Tov, that I would hold you responsible for. So this person is very much like a Jesus character. You're a Christian and you know a lot how Jesus presented in the New Testament. This is, Shem is name, Tov is good, Baal is master. Oh, master of the good name. Master of the good name. That means he could do magic. Jesus does that by mentioning the name of God, and they spoke in the name of Jesus and he was cured. Remember in the book of Acts? And they said the name of Jesus and they, and then somebody stopped having a menstrual flow. Or somebody was cured of leprosy, or somebody stood up from the resurrection, or, it's all through the New Testament and the book of Acts. If you read those documents, this is the same thing, what's going on here to some extent, the way they believe. But they were basing it on Kabbalah. Look, Kabbalah, 2 B's, I thought so, not 2 L's. You guys deceived me. I was right all along. Where's Kabbalah? There it is. I was right. 2 B's. There. What page is it on? In your book, 105 or something? Yeah. Wow, it makes me happy. I was right about something anyway. The spelling of that book. So they talk about Madonna's religion there, Kabbalah. Then they call it the books of Jewish mysticism. That's what I asked her. I said, oh, Madonna, I thought that the Kabbalah was the Jewish mysticism. No, she said, no, it's what I said. Okay, so it is. Anyway, he thinks it's Jewish mysticism here. The rabbis now you say the rabbis forbade Kabbalah? Yeah, because it was considered an underground, anti-rabbinic thing. More mystic, more charismatic, not law-oriented, very Christian-like if you want, in the sense that they don't observe the law but are more interested in miracle working and healing and that sort of thing. Which, Christianity is more interested in that than the law, the Moses law. So it shouldn't surprise you that a lot of this took place in the Carpathian Mountains, he said. He tells all about him here. You see, Reuben's father tells Reuben and Danny the whole story. And he also was in these mountains that gave birth to Hasidism, and sort of in Romania, Polish border. And then he talks about the Baal Shem Tov. And how does he refer to him as the Besht? Why does he call him the Besht? Why do you think he calls the Baal Shem Tov the Besht? B-S-H-T. an acronym. B-S-H-T. Just put some vowels in there and you get BEST. They like to make acronyms. For instance, you know the word posh? That's an acronym. You know what posh is based on? You know, he's posh, he's he's stylish. You know what that's based on?
Like English.
English? What's it based on, you know? It was based on the people who used to go out to serve in India.
Oh, that's right.
And to get the best places on the ship, because they didn't want to be in the sun. So we port out and starboard home. Port out and starboard home, posh. The best people, the posh people, got the good side of the ship out and the good side of the ship back. That's where the word comes from. There's lots of words like that. Posh. I guess you only probably know Posh Spice, but she's posh, I guess. She's married to the big soccer player, isn't she? Yeah, what's his name again? Yeah, David Beckham. Yeah, real good looking guy. He had a few mistresses apparently, but other than that, he's cool. Posh didn't like that apparently. But anyway, I don't follow this stuff. I don't follow this stuff. I just absorb it occasionally. All right, so he tells you the master of the good name, the best. So they also have singing and dancing, and if you look up here on Atlantic Avenue, Long Beach Boulevard there, you'll see them singing and dancing in religious days. And here's the word I told you about. The Hasidim had great leaders. There it is. The what? He spells it T-Z, but I just spelled it Z. The Tzadikim. The Tzadikim. You all know what that means. Now what's I am in Hebrew is a plural. So Tzadik, Tzadikim means, he says it, righteous ones. The righteous ones. They each had a Tzadik who led them. You know, Jesus is called righteous one in the scripture. In the book of Acts, he's called the righteous one. 3 times, I can tell. I know how many times it's called that because the Dead Sea Scrolls that I work on are very interested in the righteous one. Also Hasid, also Tzaddik. The Dead Sea Scrolls will have a teacher of righteousness. He's called the Moreh Tzedek, the teacher of righteousness, and he's a Tzaddik, he's a righteous one. He has a lot in common with Jesus, except he observes Mosaic law. He doesn't try to abrogate Mosaic law. But you can read my books. I'm well known for that. I have lots of books on that subject. I have a book called James, the Brother of Jesus, which I think was instrumental, if I don't mind bragging a bit, in putting James on the map. I don't think anyone ever knew much about James before I wrote a 1,000-page book about him about 10 years ago, based on all the courses I teach him. And then my new book that you saw, the New Testament Code, goes further into the Dead Sea Scrolls to show the relationship of the Dead Sea Scrolls to the New Testament documents, and how they're bouncing off each other, the usages and vocabulary and stuff. Pretty complicated stuff. That's why it's another 1,000 pages. You wouldn't want to bother with that, I can tell you.
Did you actually translate the...
Oh, I translated, yeah, 3 of the scrolls in my book, The Dead Sea Scrolls of the First Christians. So that book you can get for $4. So Dead Sea Scrolls of the First Christians in Amazon.com. They're just selling it off for nothing. It was published for around $30. So I haven't translated all of them, but I and others have done that. I don't do the same work others do, but I translated some of them myself, and a lot depends on, you know, who the translator is. That Dead Sea Scrolls of the First Christians, you can get that for $4. And so I think some people were selling for $1.25 even, right? The postage was more than the book. I said, you're kidding me. No. And then someone bought a book the other day for me to sign it. I said, how much that cost? I said, $1.25. And another guy came to me the other day in a class, and he had a book that I wrote when I was younger called Islamic Law in Palestine and Israel. Really very abstruse book, you know. They were selling in the bookstore here for $40. And they only had 1 copy apparently left. I'd given some copies about 25 years ago to the bookstore, and they still have it. So they had it on the table, and he grabbed it and said, Professor Eisner, I'm so thrilled to get this book. You know something? I looked on Amazon.com and it's sold for $125 now. So you can write 1 book and it'll sell, and that's used, he said. I got this for $40. I really feel lucky. I said, geez, you are lucky, because I wish I could get myself a few of those for that price, you know. $125, I don't ever see into that money. Collector's item, great. So the bookstore didn't know. They were selling it off. He grabbed it. And so There's a book now that you would think, why is that $125? This other book is selling for $1.25. I don't know why. Barnes and Noble printed that other book, The Dentist School of the First Christian. They used to have it out on their sale tables for $10 or something. They reprinted it. They're a bunch of crooks, Barnes and Noble. But I don't know. I never got any money from those people. Anyway, let's go on here.
James, the brother of Jesus book.
In Penguin book.
$22.
No, but you can pick it up in Amazon.com.
That's on Amazon.com. It's $22.
Nah, come on. You look at the used books. $7.50.
Used books from $15.39.
Really? That's hardback. Or
James, the brother of Jesus by Robert H. Eisen.
Yeah.
Paperback.
a paperback? Oh, all right. You're not supposed to be doing that in class. All right. Anyway, you guys can look it up if you want. It's $7.50. Some people told me, but anyway, just I can't discuss it now. I got to get on here. This is really. So I'm telling you, all these things were used back then. Is what I'm trying to tell you. So this is important too. So you see here, he says the Hasidim, they're called the pious ones. You see that? That's on page, well, I don't know what page it is, but he says they're called the pious ones. And there was another man born called Rabbi Elijah Vilna. He was called Mitnagdim. Mitnagdim, you don't have to remember this, but it's an interesting word. Mitnagdim, I didn't even know what it meant until I went to graduate school. Someone told me Mitnagdim is to be against the Hasidim. He was a strict legalist. And someone once told me, being frank with you here, since I'm in my last class, my last day, but everyone always claims this, that I'm a descendant of this Rabbi Elijah of Vilna, Mitnagdim. I have no idea if I am or not, but those are stories that are passed down in traditions. But I'll tell you, I'm a Mitnaged, and I'm always against everything. But as you saw, I was for Walt Whitman and a few others in Black Elk, but there are a lot of things that I'm against, as people know. So it wouldn't surprise me if I was related to this against person. Anyway, the great Hasidic leaders, the Tzaddikim, they were the righteous ones. That's right after that. So he tells them the whole story. That's really interesting, isn't it? Then he goes on about Reb Sanders' son, and how what a great mind he has, what a brilliant student he has. I guess Danny's gone home, and so on and so forth. Okay, chapter 7. The next day I met Danny's father. I guess Danny came over to his house, so he goes over to Danny's house. So, Danny tells him about his family. I have a brother and sister. My sister's 14, my brother's 8. I'm going to be 16, so am I, Reuben says. So these guys are in their teens at this point. And they discuss, what's wrong? How come your father let you go around with an apokoros like me? Oh, you were asking here, what does apokoros mean?
And what language?
No, you were asking me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I told you last time. What did I tell you it came from? Apokoros, Epicurean. What does an Epicurean mean in Greek English? Someone who likes beauty, food, beautiful things. He calls Reuben an Epicurean. It's a kind of a joke, but going back to the old 2nd century period, when, these people who were backsliders were called Epicureans. In Greek, it's I don't even know if I can spell it, something like that. That's where it comes from, Epicurean. Someone who likes good things, food, beauty, the way we all are, Epicureans. But it was considered an insult. It wasn't considered a compliment by these religious people. Religious people don't like people who like beautiful things. They like people who are pious. Oh, whoops. Oh, hey, man, I guess the screw fell out of my glasses. Now, I'll never get home today, Worrying about this screw here. Now I'm really in a bad shape here. If any of you got a screwdriver, let me know. Huh? We'll have to do without that one for the rest of the day here, and I don't want to lose the screw there. Okay, now I'm blind, so I can't see anything but the book. So if I look up and I can't see you, don't be surprised, huh? So now, Danny's grandfather was a well-known Hasidic rabbi in a small town in southern Russia. Here he tells the story of Danny's father. By the way, before that, he says, I thought you said he wants to meet you, even though you're in Apocoris. I thought you said your father never talks to you. What page is that? In my book, it's 112. What page is it in your book? Must be around 115 or so in your book. I thought you said your father never talks to you. Can you find it? Right before the Bolshevik Revolution, 1917. What? Should be around 115, 116 then. What is it?
116.
16?
116.
Yeah, 116. Okay. So he doesn't, except when we studied Talmud. But he did this time. So when they study, he talks to me. I got enough courage to tell him about you, and he said to bring you over. It's the same thing when I asked him to let us have a baseball team. I'd hate to have my father not talk to me. It isn't pleasant, Danny says, but he's a great man. You'll see when you meet him. Is your brother going to be a rabbi? Why do you ask? I don't know. Probably he will. He's really a great man, my father. He saved his community. I never heard about that. I told him. That's right, he said, and told him about his father's early years. Danny's grandfather had been a well-known Hasidic rabbi in a small town in southern Russia. His father had been the second of two sons. That's what I told you. The firstborn son had been in line to inherit the father's position. But during a period of study in Odessa, which is on the Black Sea in Ukraine now, he suddenly vanished. That's right, he disappeared. Some said he'd been murdered. There was even a rumor he converted to Christianity and had gone to France. So it was a great tragedy in the family that the older son disappeared. Then some more tragedies happened here. Someone was shot during the 1917 Russian Revolution. I can't read all the stories. You'll have to pick that up here, but it tells how he came to America. And when they finally get to Danny's house here, about page 120 or so, we were approaching a group of about 30 black kaftan men. What's a kaftan? A long black coat. Who were standing in front of a 3-story brownstone in Brooklyn here. And they all part when Danny comes. They treat him like he's royalty, you see. And then they go into the house. One of the guys from the baseball team is there, and Danny grinned at me. Danny's always joking. You're in holy halls, he says. It takes getting used to. That was like parting the Red Sea out there, I said. How did you do it? I'm my father's son, remember? I'm the inheritor of the dynasty. You sound like a Mitnaged, I told him. Anyway, they're having a good night. Okay, so then the father comes and they get down to dinner. A man was coming slowly up the narrow aisle, followed by a child. He was a tall man, and he wore a black satin kaftan and a fur-trimmed black hat. My page 120. I assume it's your page about 127. Am I right? A man came coming slowly up the aisle?
It's 5.
What is it?
125.
125. Sorry about this difference in page. So that describes Danny's father. It's a pretty interesting scene here. And they go through the whole dinner. You can read that yourself. They start talking about people in the Talmud. And this is where I think maybe they get into that trick situation. I'm not sure. But Danny's father holds forth and explains things. It's nothing new that the Holy Presence resides among 10. 10 is the number of people for a prayer service. Danny's father starts getting carried away, talks about the world killing us, the world flouls our skin, the world laughs at Torah, Torah is the law, the world is Amalek, it is not the world that's commanded to study Torah. He starts getting worked up, and he starts telling all about the numerology that they have. 18 is the number for living, and he starts giving you all this inside information, which is quite interesting, but I don't have time to cover it all. Apologize, I wish I did. A lot of interesting information in this book. And they talk about the Talmud, some of the books of the Talmud. Pirkei Avot is a collection of rabbinic maxims. And a chapter of it is studied by many Jews every Sabbath between Passover and the Jewish New Year. That's between April and September. Talks about different parts of the Talmud. Tractates, Sanhedrin, Gittin, Yomah. I have excerpts from those in my New Testament code because there are things in there that relate to usages in the New Testament I show. And if you start to get on top of some of those things, you can see there's moving back and forth. He talks about gematria all through here. Gematria. Gematria is a secret code, which it's not for us a secret. You simply reverse the letters. So this is, actually it shows you that the letter G goes to T. You reverse the letter. In other words, A is the last letter, B is the second to last letter, and you just turn the alphabet around and write the word in its reverse order. That's what gematria is, and so they all are playing around with this. These are the games that they like to play. And then comes the mistakes. I don't know what page, it's 136 in mine. Probably around 142 in yours. You think he's a tyrant, don't you? They're walking home. I shook my head. I don't know what to think. One minute he's a tyrant, the next minute he's very kind and gentle. I don't know what to think. He's got a lot on his mind, Daddy said. He's a pretty complicated person. Do you always go through this routine at the table? Sure, I don't mind. I enjoy it a little, Danny says. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's a family tradition, Danny explained. My father's father used to do it to him. Goes way back. It would scare me to death. It's not that bad. The bad part is waiting until he makes the mistake. Apparently he made a mistake that we skipped here, and Reuben is forced to pick him up. But the mistakes aren't really hard to find. He makes one that he knows I can find. It's a kind of game, some game. The second mistake tonight caught me off guard, but he made that one for you. That was very good the way you caught it. Apparently Reuben caught it. Do you remember what the mistake was? I haven't read this recently. Do you recall?
Is it the numbers, how...
Yeah.
Because he's a mathematician.
He messes around with the numbers, does he? And Reuben
Yeah.
picks him up? Okay. You can read that, and I hope you guys will read it. And so then he I hate to tell you what I think about that game. What happens if you miss the mistake? Danny laughs. I haven't missed in years, don't worry. What happens when you do miss? It's uncomfortable for a while. See, Danny's pretty cool, actually. He doesn't take anything very seriously. He wasn't too good tonight. It was a little forced. A few months ago it was fantastic. So they're having this very interesting discussion here after the dinner. And Reuben's proved himself, you see. So then he talks about how they're going to go on to a college here, a religious college called Hirsch College. I think Reuben's father teaches there, but it's not a Hasid school. It's just a straight Orthodox college. It's a religious Orthodox college. Sort of like, some of these churches down in Orange County or so, like the Maranatha or those sort of places. But this is for Orthodox Jewish people. And I guess they're going to go to there. And so Danny talks to his father when he gets home. You were at Reb Sanders synagogue all this time? Yes. I sat at the kitchen table and slowly told my father everything that took place at Reb Sanders synagogue. He listened really quietly. And he grimaced when I started talking about the gematria. He didn't like gematria, my father didn't. He didn't like that kind of stuff. He once referred to it as nonsense numerology. So he didn't like that and the mistakes. He thinks all this is silly. It was an experience, Abba, the way Danny had to answer his father's question. My father, it's the next to last page here on this chapter 7. My father shook his head. It's not so temperamental, not for Danny, not for his father, not for people who listen. It's an old tradition, this kind of Talmudic discussion. I've seen it many times between great rabbis, but it doesn't only take place between rabbis. Kant is a famous German philosopher in the 18th century. When Kant became a professor, he had to follow an old tradition argument in public on a philosophical subject. One day when you're a professor at the university and read a paper for your colleagues, you will also have to answer questions. So, but the business about the mistakes, I never heard that one before. He's a great man, Reb Sanders, but great men are always difficult to understand. I don't care for his Hasidism, but he's not a fraud. If he weren't a tzaddik, he could not make such a great contribution. So he shows respect for Danny's father. But Danny's father doesn't have any respect for him. So, okay, we're in chapter 8. This stuff you can read yourself. It's about Midnadim, Rabbi Elijah of Vilna, all these difficult things. But let me see if I can find where the Zionism starts to come in. Oh, here's your point, by the way, about my father certainly hadn't told him to read Freud. So you're right, there it is. It's on page 152 of my book. He told him to read psychology, but he hadn't told him to read Freud. Right? So you have it there. So they get to be really good friends. He goes over to their house all the time. And then even sort of by about 158, which would be towards the end of chapter 8, 3 pages before the end. I suppose that's about 162 in your book or something? Or 163 or 4, 2 pages before the end of that chapter. What page would that be? 68. Oh, you're already up to 168? All right, so is that the last page in that chapter? So about 167 or so. Reb Sanders looked at me and sighed, Reuben, I want you to hear me out. No one lives forever. My father led his people before me and my grandfather before him. For 6 generations we have led our people in this little sect. And Daniel will one day take my place. My son is my most precious possession. You see these people, they love their sons. There's great love between them. I have nothing in the world compared to my son. I must know what he's reading, so he's using Danny to spy, Reuben to spy on Danny. How did he come to meet your father in the library? He's jealous, you see, of this relationship. And I saw I was sitting on top of an explosion. And that Reb Sanders thought we were conspiring to contaminate his son. That he was studying German and planning to read Freud and so on. And Freud, of course, is the father of psychoanalysis, and he's Jewish originally, but he would be hated by these religious people. And Darwin even. What can I do, he said. I can no longer speak to my own son. The Master of the Universe gave me a brilliant son, phenomenon, but I can't even speak to him. Oh, so many troubles. I have a brilliant son. I've thanked him 1,000,000 times, but he had to make him so brilliant. He's too brilliant. And I'm going to lose him. So he's crying here, basically, to Reuben. Then, at the end of that chapter, he speaks more about this silent treatment, etc. And chapter 9. Let's see if we can get the situation here with chapter 10. My father and I followed the war news very carefully, and there were now many New York Times maps. So it's 1945, they're getting across 44, 45. If you've seen Band of Brothers, you'll know things like Le Hay-Dupuy area, Saint-Lô, Cannes. This is the breakout from Normandy. Then the rush to Paris is being described. And that was the week Danny began reading Freud in German already. He also read Hemingway and Fitzgerald and stuff like that. He talks about all these books they're reading. And the Talmudic books, let's see, chapter 11. was a cold winter in New York. See, the following the war all the way here. I'm on page 175. I may make it through this book. It was a bleak news of fighting in the Ardennes. You guys saw that Band of Brothers. That's where the Battle of the Bulge took place, and they're fighting in the winter and the cold, and then he knows that that's happened. That's in chapter 11, the Battle of the Bulge. And also the Russians are moving across Eastern Europe. The Americans have reached the Rhine River, Remagen. We're into the 1945 here. The end of Hitler. Last week of March, Danny caught the flu. The Ruhr, Patton's army. First week in April. And so on. And then, of course, the war's over. And, they're all talking about this. And then he comes to the slaughter that they discovered. Theresienstadt, which was the name of one of the more less brutal execution camps. We couldn't grasp it. The numbers of Jews slaughtered had gone from 1 million to 3 million to 4 million. Almost every article we read said the count was still incomplete. The final number would probably reach 6 million. I couldn't begin to imagine 6 million of my people murdered. I lay in my bed. I asked myself what sense it was made. I didn't make any sense at all. My mind couldn't hold on to it. This is around, I don't know what page, this is sort of probably around page 190 or so in your book. Then he called me a few days later. And they're really just completely crushed by this news. And they discuss it. Where was God, and so on and so forth. 6 million of our people, the end of that chapter 11, have been slaughtered. It's inconceivable. So we cannot wait for God anymore to do something. The madman has destroyed our treasures, and so on and so forth. He takes his final examination, and then his father has a heart attack last page of that particular chapter 11. Reb Sanders calls him to his house, chapter 12. And he spends a month there, I guess, while his father's getting ready. When his father comes out of the hospital, he starts telling about the problem in Palestine. Here it is on page 185 in my book, chapter 12. Do you have it? Do you know what page it is in your book? Had my father been well at the time, I would have talked to him about what was going on, basically.
195?
What is it?
195?
195. So you guys are 11 pages ahead of me. He was reading everything he could find that told of the destruction of European Jewry. Occasionally he spoke of the importance of Palestine as a Jewish homeland. Mostly he concerned about American Jewry and so on. He talks about the whole mandate situation with the British. Mr. Eden got up in the House of Commons, gave the complete details of the Nazi plan. This was in 1942. Mr. Eden was the British Foreign Secretary. But no one had cared enough. And 6 million were slaughtered. They all closed their doors. It's true, the British had closed the gates of Palestine in 1937. The Americans wouldn't let anyone in either. They were afraid of being overrun by refugees, and they all were stuck there and basically annihilated. So then Danny's father begins to rave against the leaders in Palestine. That's on the next page. Who are these people? Who are these people? Ben Gurion. They build a Jewish land for us. Only when the Messiah comes. So he starts going on, you know, we can't do this now. When the Messiah comes, that's when we will have the Holy Land. Never, never, not while I live. We should not now build this country. Where is the Messiah? Tell me. And so he's going ranting and raving, Danny's father. So things are getting bad between everybody here, you see. And now we get into chapter 13. I think we're almost finished this book here, and then I'll be able to tell you about the exam here quick. Let me finish through here. I told you how this ends. Reb Sanders had stopped inserting deliberate errors into his Shabbat evenings. And finally, I think you see here, I came back to my room and found my father standing in the doorway that led to his study. He had a bad cold, was wearing a woolen sweater. He'd already had a heart attack, but he's still all worked up about the situation. He'd become involved in Zionist activities. So this would be around 212 or something. He was always attending meetings where he spoke about the importance of Palestine as a Jewish national home, raised money for the Jewish National Fund. He was always teaching adult studies courses in the history of political Zionism and so on and so forth. His pace was, he was always tired, his face was pale. This would be about 1946, 47. His father is consumed, and then he starts talking in around 214. The time is not to take things easy, he said. You can see what's happening in Palestine. The Haganah he speaks of is the Jewish defense forces there. The Irgun are the underground. He speaks about the Haganah and the Irgun. They're the underground quasi-terrorist groups. They're fighting the British to get them out of Palestine, because the British won't let any, even after the Holocaust, won't let any people come in. And so there's terrorist activities in 46, 47 here. And they're going to execute one of these Jewish terrorist guys called Dov Bruner, sentenced to hang. And so his father's following all these things. And so his father says to him, Reuben, you're no longer a child. His father's lecturing him. A span of life is nothing. A man lives that span, he's something. He can fill that tiny span with meaning. You understand what I'm saying? A man must fill his life with meaning. It's not automatically given. This is an interesting book, whether you agree with the position or not. It's an interesting book. He tells you a lot of information. And his father goes on and tells him more about his lectures that he's giving and so on and so forth. So that's in chapter, what chapter is it? Chapter 13. And also he starts coaching Danny in math, because Danny may be good at some things, but he's not good in math. Then there was a big rally in Madison Square Garden where the Knicks play basketball, if you're a basketball fan. And they were having a big rally. It was the last month of February. This is probably 1947 or something. And they're all arguing about it. People like Reb Sanders despise all effort aimed at the establishment of a Jewish state before the advent of the Messiah. And so on and so forth. And so they're all going on about these things and the debates at the UN and so on. My father had gave this speech at the Madison Square Garden, and it was a wild success, he says. It made all the front pages of the paper, and what happens then? Danny's father reads about the speech and forbids Danny to ever speak to Reuben again. So that's sort of the end of that chapter 13. So he says, the rest of that semester, Danny and I ate in the same lunchroom, attended as 14, the same class, studied in the same school, often rode the same trolley car, but never said a single word to each other. Our eyes met, but our lips exchanged nothing. I grew to hate Reb Sanders and his fanaticism. That's chapter 14. What page is that, chapter 14? Huh? 234. 234, you guys. It's 220 in my book. Reb Sanders now was fighting against them. He had organized some Hasidic Rebbe's to fight against the homeland idea. See, they don't agree on anything. An anti-Zionist rally he was Reb Sanders was organized. So, again, his father collapses at one of the speeches, and he's really in very bad shape because he's basically killing himself with his activities. And then I think finally, well, they're out of college, and it's the end of the term. That's chapter 14. Chapter 15, now his father comes back, and the war has broken out in Palestine between the Arabs and the Jews. The Israelis don't exist. It's not a country called Israel yet. This is chapter 15. In April, Tiberias, Haifa, Safad were occupied by the Haganah, and the Irgun, with the help of the Haganah, captured Jaffa. So they're fighting it out here. Then things, it gives all the battles that occurred at that period. It's 1947, 48 now. And Reb Sanders has failed to convince the majority of the community of his position. So Reb Sanders' Anti-Zionist League seemed to have gone out of existence. And then suddenly Danny came over to my table after they were successful in battle. Smiled hesitantly, sat down and asked me to give him a hand with his experimental psychology. And I said to him, chapter 16, welcome back to the land of the living. And Danny says quite simply, the ban has been lifted. So his father has given up. And suddenly things are forgiven. And then finally, he goes back to Danny's house at the end of 16. When the school year ended, July came around, I went over to Danny's house one morning. And then his Reb Sanders greets him and talks to him. Reb Sanders sat, page before chapter 17, 248 in my book, in his straight-backed red leather chair surrounded by his books and musty odor. He hesitated, looked at me, then at Danny. I told him my father and I were studying Talmud together on Shabbat. His eyes brooded. Could I come over some Shabbos? He says Shabbos, the Yiddish way of saying it. Afternoon, that was all he said. Not a word about Zionism, not a word about silence he'd imposed on Danny, nothing. I disliked him more when I left than when I had entered. So then, chapter 17, he comes over to see, I think, Danny's father. And I think Danny's father then tells him that Danny's going to shave off his side curls, his beard, and he's going to go to college in New York as a secular person. Danny is not going to follow him in his profession. It's a great tragedy for him. Well, that goes on into chapter 18. And finally, Reb Sanders is talking to Danny in chapter 18 here, about 5 pages before the end here. He said, Reuben, I want you to listen carefully. He said, Reuben, his eyes had said, Danny, but he's talking to Reuben, you will not understand. You may never understand. You may never stop hating me for what I've done. I know how you feel. I do not see it in your eyes, but I want you to listen. A man is born into this world with only a tiny spark of goodness in him. The spark is God. It's the soul. The rest is ugliness and evil, a shell. The spark must be guarded like a treasure. It must be nurtured. It must be fanned into flame. It must learn to seek out other sparks. It must dominate the shell. Anything can be a shell, Reuben. Anything. Indifference, laziness, brutality. Yet even a great mind can be a shell. Reuben, the Master of the Universe, blessed me with a brilliant son, and he cursed me with all the problems of raising him. So he goes on to make his confession to Reuben. It's a very long speech. And then Danny says that his brother is going to be the successor now. I think, but I guess here he tells Danny, well, Danny's father is still telling him all about these things. And that goes on all the way till 2 pages before the end. He makes this long speech about everything. And he says, I loved him and talked with him and held him under my prayer shawl. And so on and so forth. You think I'm cruel? I see from your eyes that you think I was cruel to my Daniel. Perhaps, but he's learned. Let Daniel be a psychologist. I know he wishes to become a psychologist. I do not see his books. I did not see the letters from the universities. I know what he's doing. And his life, he will be a tzaddik. He will be a tzaddik for the world, a righteous one. The world needs a tzaddik. So on. It's a tender confession, as you see. I can't read the whole thing, but I hope that you'll read it. And finally, the last page. After all these things, Danny came over to our apartment one evening in September. He was moving into the room he had rented in Manhattan, that's across the river, uptown Manhattan near Columbia. He said he wanted to say goodbye. His beard and earlocks were gone. I told you they had these forelocks. It's all shaved off. His face looked pale, but there was a light in his eyes. My father smiled at him warmly. Columbia's not so far, he said. We will see you on Shabbat. Danny nodded. He smiled about his father. He's not happy, he said, almost as if he didn't recognize me. He talked to you? Yes, Danny. We talk now. Basically talk all the time. My father leaned forward to share. Danny, he said, when you have a son of your own, will you raise him in silence too? Yes, he said, if I can't find a better way. My father nodded. Later I went down with Danny to the street. You'll come over sometimes on Saturday. We'll study Talmud with my father, he asked. Of course, I said. We shook hands and I watched him walk quickly away. Tall, lean, bent forward with eagerness, hungry for the future, his metal cap shoes tapping against the sidewalk. Then he turned Lee Avenue and was gone. Hey, we did it. We got through it. I can't put my glasses on. I don't even know where they are.
Under the chair.
What? Under the chair. Under the chair. Where am I? Oh, there they are. What have you got? It's got a little screwdriver. Now, that would really help me get it back together again. But let's talk about the exam. That's all you guys came for today, I guess. You could have read this book yourself, right? Yeah, but anyway, I tried to get you through it. That's the best I can do. I mean, try to get you through it. Some of you can't read for yourself very well. I know that. And when you do read, you don't really take it in. So together, we get through it. Like we did everything. So here's our final exam. 2 out of 3 questions. Look at all the ID stuff we've got here. I mean, I got a wealth of stuff to ask you. 6 identifications. You can bring your Chosen, you can bring your Black Elk, you can bring your D.H. Lawrence books. You can bring little notes on note cards of things you don't want to forget. Don't bring your notebooks. Just bring little notes on note cards if you want some things you don't want to forget. So you can't fit. You really have to try to fit. And I don't think anyone is failing very well much that I know of in this country. Now, 2 out of 3 essays, 6 IDs. I can ask you from Black Elk. I can ask you from Lawrence. I can ask you about the Etruscans. I can ask you about the Tombs. All kinds of, I got so many IDs here, I don't know, it's coming out of my ears. But you've got all the books and you've got note cards, so you shouldn't be able not to get these. As far as the questions go, 2 out of 3. I'll ask you maybe something about Black Elk. We did some Black Elk in the last exam. I might try to ask you something about the last part of Black Elk. I can't remember where it was by now. But I'll probably concentrate more on D.H. Lawrence and The Chosen. So I can't promise, you know, what I might ask on Black Elk. It would be the second part of Black Elk, if anything. More like the ghost dance religion and you know, going to Europe and things like that. Starting with maybe the aftermath of the Battle of Little Bighorn and so on. And that kind of thing I could maybe work some essay up. I'm not sure about what I would ask there. As far as D.H. Lawrence, I want to know about the religion of the spontaneity of the senses. I want to know about the tombs that he visits. I want to know about the fawn man, the natural person, the phallic consciousness, the sexuality, if you like. the anti-Christianity, the anti-intellectuality, the anti-Greek, the anti-imposing things, the loving of the small, quick touch of life, spontaneous, quick. I might ask you about the augur or the haruspecs and what they all mean, those kinds of things. You'll know more than Jen knows. But after she reads 100 of your essays, she should know as much as you guys. So she'll get smarter and smarter yet.
Is the exam at the normal class
I think it is. I think it is.
7 o'clock.
Usually around 7:15. We'll give you two and a half hours, whatever it takes. And then the chosen. Look, there's a lot of stuff here. I basically will ask you about the relationship of fathers to sons, what it means, how it's expressed, maybe some of the background of what's going on, what the arguments are, how it plays out, and so on. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I think you can't really, have you followed the lectures, which we basically read the books the second time with you, in case you couldn't get it all the first time? And probably maybe some of the conflicts that are rising in the chosen between the Orthodox and the ultra-Orthodox, why some people are for the Jewish homeland of Palestine, why some people think they shouldn't have it, why the Holocaust doesn't even matter to them, which I think is an incredible thing. How after you've lost almost half your population can you not want to have a homeland? It's like mind-boggling to me that they would even argue about it. I understand the Arab situation, but you know, with all due respect to the Arab view of this, I mean, I don't think the Arabs have lost 6 million people. And I honestly feel, they say it's not our problem. Okay, it's not your problem, but these people originally came from there, and honestly, there's something like 21 Arab countries. I mean, you know, how many countries do you want? You can't make one space for one country for a small other people who suffer? You mean you don't even have that generosity that you would make that space? You want 22 countries? That's basically my question. You know, come on, you really can't tolerate, 21 isn't enough, you gotta have 22? That's all I would say on that issue. But anyway, I don't know how many countries there are, but there's a lot. And all those, let me finish, all those countries have contributed a lot to world civilization, that they deserve a place in the sun and these other people don't deserve any place? No, I can't follow that. So the people who were after World War II, who saw this suffering, I understand the conflict between Danny's father and Reuben's father. I understand Reuben's position. I understand Reuben's father's position quite well. Those are the things I want you to write about. Any questions? Good luck. Thank you for bearing with me. Hey, I can put one glass on here.
Oh, that's right.
Pretty interesting for that. Badly written either. Rude. See if I can explain it. I'm listening. Keep talking.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the
Oh yeah.
the Iranian.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's incredible, frankly. You know, I can't play the game of trying to be nice about it all. These poor people have been through hell. I think that. He found the screw. Woo! Thanks a lot, man. Hey, look at the size of that thing, will you?
Is this? Oh, wait, no, there was this one.
Did you really? Yeah? Oh, you did? Why didn't you help me, man? I could use some. You got a screwdriver? Yeah, you really do. Hey. I'll see you guys. Have a good time. See you when I see you. But the Muslims in the class didn't like me saying that, but I can't help it. You know. Yeah, come on. You know, let's get ready with this thing that's absurd after a while. you know, how much you want, you know, okay, there's a little suffering, you people have a little suffering, okay, but your suffering is really minuscule compared to what these poor people are living with. And then you want to kill them too? I mean, it's kind of, oh God, where is, here it is. Here it is, here it is. Here, I got it. Now I'll hold it.
I know how to do it.
Yeah, all right, there. Hey, you're good, man. I can't even see.
How are you going to go home without glass?
Well, he's gonna fix it. He's a good man.
It's a nighttime, how to glass?
This is the last lecture.
This is my last, I got one tomorrow, and I'm done, man. But I miss you guys. I like that.
I miss you.
Oh, I miss you
I wish I
guys.
could take you for the recording.
Yeah, I wish you could too. Maybe they'll put me, what's the schedule? The chairman said he might put me a part-time course again. I would teach Dead Sea Scrolls or historical Jesus or Islam. I would teach something. I'm a good Islam teacher. And I could teach one of those things. He might call on me to do that, you know, let's see next term what I'm, watch for my name. But it was some fun having you guys. I should give you my email. You can email me if you want. Here.
Okay.
Here. Well, does this thing work? R5E5. Don't give it to people who hate me. I don't want to get hate mail. But you can email me whatever you want. R5E5@yahoo.com. Really easy. I should have given that to the others. I'll give it maybe. So why didn't you give it in the beginning? Because I didn't want to ever bother you all the time. They, you know, they bother me about this and everything else. Can I help you? What do you want?
No,
You're
I'm
okay?
just worried
Yeah?
because
Oh, about my getting
it's
home.
nighttime.
Do you think you can do it?
Yeah, I could.
What have you got here?
I'm trying to see if it close like that to like a flathead.
They could,
I don't think you can get it in there. How about this thing here?
See what's in there.
Let's see what's in. Oh, here we go, man. Yeah, that point of that. Let's see what else we got here.
oh,
Anyway, let's see what this here. Hold on. Boy, man, you can kill someone with this thing. Oh, you got everything. There you go. I think the point of this or the point of this will work.
Okay.
Maybe. Or just stick it and just turn it a bit. A little screw.
you think they have a big DVD in the Barnes and Noble store? I can.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they do. Oh, yeah, they have the movie. The movie's pretty good, actually. It's pretty close. Yeah, I think the movie is
They
pretty
don't have
close.
it in the library, because I checked it.
No?
Yeah, I went.
They have it?
No, he said they don't have it.
They don't have it in the library. You could probably get it from my.
Anyway, if you guys have trouble with your grade, you come tell me. She'll give you a good grade. I'll change your grade. I'm sure she's doing okay with you because
Yeah,
she gives everything. She gives everyone a good grade.
You
Some of
think you will be okay then?
I don't know. Ask him. Am I gonna be okay?
You don't
Yeah.
have extra glass?
Do I might in my car. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe I did. Oh, I think maybe just give me that screw and you guys going home. I think I can just want to put it in my
I
pocket.
think he almost fixed it.
Yeah, almost got
Yeah,
it.
it
I just gotta take time.
All right, all right. Yeah, we don't want to strip it, do we?
No, we don't want to strip it.
Yeah.
So you have trifocals.
Yeah, so what do you
That best way
think?
opening.
You think this class was okay?
Yeah, I love this, but this is like my most favorite
Really?
academic course
Yeah,
ever.
really?
Yeah.
How come?
Well, cause you're so real and like you
I
talk about.
don't
things-
screw around.
No, you don't screw around and you get straight to the point and.
Yeah, but I just read the text to you.
Yeah, but you know, it actually encouraged me to go home and read it.
And that's what I figured. I figured if I tell you what's in it, then it's not so daunting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I figured. That's my philosophy. That's all these people, you know, they do all these lectures and they make it even more boring than the text even is because their lectures are boring.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And then you don't want to hear it, you don't want to read the text at all. I try to say, hey, let's get into this text and let's try to, yeah, well, that's kind of you guys. I'm going to miss you guys.
I also like how you didn't depend on us to like lead the conversation.
No, I
About the
don't.
book.
No,
A
because
lot of teachers do that.
they're lazy. They don't want
Yeah.
to, they're lazy. They don't have confidence. That's what that's about. Then they think they pose, they say, oh, well, you're doing this because, I'll get my camera. We're doing this because we're trying to be good and good. No, you don't come to hear other people discuss things. You come to hear the professor discuss things, don't you think? If you wanted to hear some